Jaguars.
Dream Jaguars. Episode, I don't know. Fucking long time ago.
Long time ago.
Long time ago.
I can still remember.
Gonna do a little recap video on one of our best or biggest videos. The DMT experience. What happens during the DMT experience? It's gonna be good. So what happens when you have a breakthrough dose of DMT? Firstly, so you set your intention. What do I want from the experience? What do I want? Do I just want to explore the inner universe as above so below, or do I want to try and bring something back into this life, everyday life, that is useful from the experience?
We call it a reset, don't we?
So yeah, you got to ask yourself, what do you want? What do you want? You can just go and explore, nothing wrong with that. But maybe it's kind of not productive.
Why is that?
I don't know, just like, is it productive? Yeah, maybe it is. So, let's get back to the nitty gritty.
The nitty gritty.
You sit down in your chair, heart beating, pulse racing, and you are past. At this point you kind of go into like a, well, I kind of go into like a little meditative state where I know that I'm going in. It's too late to back out. I know I'm going in, so I kind of find this zen spot.
A little bit of a mantra.
And you get handed the vessel and you start to inhale. And for me at this point, the known universe, consciousness, this simulation begins to break down, vibrate, oscillate, tessellate, and the experience begins.
Alright, so what happens? As Paul's just said, saying that your intent is key. You have to have a full understanding. So if you've never done it before and you're thinking about doing it, and you've heard about this stuff and you want to try it and you've managed to get your hands on it, you've probably been pretty lucky. If you've done no reading or done no real research into it, I would suggest that you did that prior to taking any venture on that compound, because what you're gonna get is quite intense. So even when you're an experienced dimensional traveller, you sit in that place, as Paul said, you get yourself comfy, and then you start to remember, or you're going in, so you get a bit fucking hesitant, and then literally you take that compound. We've pretty much perfected the technique, so there's no going back. It's once you've had a blast on the vessel, there's definitely no going back, and at that point, that's probably one of them points when you feel that onslaught, when you can start to get more fear than than when you were sat there ready to do it, because there's always a bit of bravado there, I suppose. Instantly, you remember this is DMT, and as you are exhaling, your visuals, your scope around you starts to transform very quickly into something completely different, but still the same, which is hard to explain. I think that I don't know how many people out there have ever smoked weed, but the first time you smoke weed and you get a bit of, or any marijuana, cannabis product, you get a certain clarity to your visual state, and you start to identify stuff, or light, colours. They instantly start to become more vivid, more intense. And what's happening in the brain there, as we've discussed before, is the parts of your brain that are allowing your senses to impart this information into your brain for your brain to construct this reality. They start to work in a different way, and I think our belief is that you're just retuning your frequencies to a different frequency, which then allows you to start perceiving stuff in a different way, and that can be quite scary, because the onslaught is so fast it can take you back. So there's that, Paul talking about the intent, the mantra. You definitely have to have something, like you're just going to accept what's coming your way. You're not going to allow it to overpower you, because if you allow it to overpower you, then you can completely miss everything. You can literally just be more concerned about, fuck, I've done too much, I'm going to die, or I'm dying, or am I breathing? And once you allow that shit to take hold, you miss the beauty of what it is you're actually being given.
Okay, so as Justin quite rightly just said there, for me, as you go into the experience, Justin highlighted that you do have a brief recollection of what you've done as your consciousness flips, and you then begin to open. And at that point, everything about being human kind of stops, except the core awareness of being a human, like that. Your ego kind of shuts off, disappears, dissipates, and you are left with what the ancient. Hold on, I'm looking a bit, motherfucker. So, as you lay back and you exhale, and the geometry forms, and whatever that geometry is integral to opening up the consciousness or your conscious awareness, and to be able to move into that space. And you're not there yet, but it opens and unfolds, and you have this recollection of being human, of having done DMT, being human, and then it's gone. And that's kind of where the intelligence comes to the fore from whatever that space is, and whether or not you're meeting another part of you from your subconscious, or external intelligences. Nobody knows, nobody will ever know. Maybe they will, but at the moment we don't. And the geometry kind of speeds up and slows down. It's like a flicker. and you kind of follow the flicker.
Pulsating.
Yeah, and then you're so overwhelmed by what you're seeing that you're trying to follow one thing, but you can't orientate yourself. So you follow this thing, you follow this thing, you follow this thing, you follow this thing, and it just becomes insanely beautiful and insanely mesmerizing. And that's where the entities then come forward in a sort of overbearing analysis of what you are.
Yeah, no, alright, so at that point, like you just said, once you go into that, once that fucking, all that shit starts to happen, the brain rewards, or the brain is working in a different frequency, the visuals are just so intense, and like Paul said, you're looking at one thing, then you're falling through that, finding another thing, and another thing, and it is so shockingly harsh and intense, but beautiful and powerful. Terrifying. And I was going to say that the ego, like you said, you instantly recognise your ego, what is you, what is your mask, and are able to identify right at that point, fuck, that's me. That's who I am. Which is a very strange thing to think about, a concept of actually, boom, like, it's like you looking at you straight away. Then all that shit moves away, all that shit goes, and then you just become this free,
super intelligent, multi-dimensional,
free spirit drifting through some dimensional fucking realms,
inhabited by aliens,
by fucking metallic creatures, whatever they are. And yeah, their intent can be, sometimes they can be overbearing and powerful, sometimes they can be loving and nurturing. So
everybody has their own experience, and their subjective experience is really the only experience that you can gauge from. So your own subjective experience is the only experience that matters. People can tell you this, that and the other, but if you have the experience, you'll say, well, there's nothing like that, or fuck me, you're bang on. So it's difficult, but I think we've had enough experience with the molecule to come to the assumption that something is going on, that this is not just a drug experience, that this is something that possibly is going to be very important to humankind, it probably has been in the past and will need to be again in the future, certainly in the near future with what's going on with the world. But the experience feels intrinsically real, more real than this reality. You kind of have a realization that you're a part of something bigger, and that potentially, you know, as an ant isn't aware of how to build a skyscraper, but we could be living right alongside the construction of a skyscraper, then we too could not be aware that there are a plethora of intelligences and entities out there in the universe right next door to us, and we just haven't got the senses to, you know, perceive those realities. But it feels intrinsically real, and there are entities and intelligences that want to make contact or just observe us. It's very interesting. Very interesting. So as you come to the end of your experience, you kind of have a recognition in that space that hang on a minute, this is not where I am meant to be. And then kind of parts of you begin to creep in, and the experience very, very quickly fades like a dream slipping through your fingers. So you need to write down as much information as you can, draw if you can anything that you've seen, and just be thankful, really. Be thankful that you've had the privilege, because a lot of people will go through their entire life without ever having this experience. And as Terence McKenna always states, that this is integral to the human experience, like sex, giving birth, and the psychedelic breakthrough. It's important. You need to face these things, and you need to learn from it. Yeah, baby. Well, that'll do for now then.
You might have cut that. You might cut that bit out though.
We'll see you again soon.
Do an ending.
So we've got enough B-roll.